Yeah, welcome to part 3. This is where it gets good. We're going to do fit up. So I ended up getting a lot of comments last time about making longer videos, so this one's going to be a little longer. So let's get into this. The first thing that needs to get trimmed on the Beetle is the rear wheel wells. And we're just going to drop it on and see if it fits. I'm going to spoil it for you now. It doesn't fit. On the Beetle, the point I'm using for reference is the front door seam. So what I did is I took steel bars, lined it up with the wheels, and measured from the center of the front wheel back to the door seam. So that should align everything fine. Now, with the Beetle, you get a lot of leeway because the whole front suspension swings. Same with the rear. So on my buddy's Beetle, who I measured off of, I ended up getting about an inch shorter wheelbase than on the diagrams you could find online. So I didn't end up making it too precise. I tried to make it to how it was originally on the pan. And in the end, it's going to be fine anyway, because the wheel really can sit anywhere in that wheel well. Now, it started to rain at some point, so I ended up having to shove everything in the garage, and you could see the tight quarters I'm having to work in. The first thing I noticed I was hitting was the heater channels on the Beetle. They were too wide and they were hitting where the seat bolts in. Now it's going to be close anyway. I think the doors are just about going to touch the seats. But I'll be figuring out any alignment issues once the car is completely together. The pedals I can't really move over and make it comfortable, and the steering wheel seems to line up okay. So even with the seat pretty much touching the door, I think there's still enough elbow room to be comfortable, but I haven't put the seats in yet. The other problem I ended up running into is the back spring towers. Those are going to interfere with the body. Now, there's a few things I could have done. One option is to take the shock tower, or whatever you want to call it, and drop it down and use custom coilovers. Now, I really want to use as many factory parts as possible because if a coil spring goes out, I want to be able to just throw a new one in, that day. So the option I chose to go with is I'm going to notch the Beetle body in the back. Now it goes up kind of high. It doesn't interfere with the window, either of them, and it doesn't quite hit the seam on the top. So I'm going to have to figure out something, maybe air scoop looking things in the back, just to kind of cover the top of the shock tower and seal everything in, because I still need to access that bolt if I need to replace the shocks. Now, throughout the build, I've been showing people the car, and I've gotten a ton of suggestions, and one of the other suggestions someone had was cut the Beetle right down the middle and widen it. And that way, I don't have to worry about putting wider fenders on, which I'm going to have to do because it's about 1.5 inches wider, the tires stick out, and I might be able to offset that with a set of rims, but I mean, these rims are fine, and I think if I go any more in with the tire, I'm going to start interfering with the shock. So I could put a narrower tire or just deal with it and put flares or extend the fender, but I don't want to split the body because I want to keep using factory windshield and factory back glass, factory seals, all that, keep it easy, and just deal with, the fenders, because fenders are easy to replace. The other suggestions I've gotten is for a name. Now, I've been asking around, seeing what people think, and one of my buddies came up with the name The Cockroach, which, that's pretty good, but you know, I don't know. Maybe someone can come up with something better than that. Now, when I dropped the Beetle on the frame this time, it looks so cool with those fat tires. But the rear end is sticking up so high that it just looks weird. It ends up having this like stink bug look. So I have to trim down even more of that back to get it even closer. And once the Beetle body's sitting inside of the Subaru frame, I noticed that the rockers on the Subaru don't interfere at all. So I ended up just cutting those out, and since the main frame of the Subaru is gone, one idea I had was to put in running boards on the Beetle. You'll notice that the old Beetles have that running board, the step, and what I could do is basically run a bar from the front shock tower down inside the wheel well so it's hidden, run it completely down the side of the car and then back to the rear shock tower, kind of locking everything together. I mean, it'll still flex, you know, this way, but at least it'll have some strength. Regardless, I need to build a frame, but, you know, that might help a little with rigidity, and then just fill it in with some, like, steel plate. Yeah, so once everything was notched enough, I ended up welding little pads for the body to sit on, and now it's sitting pretty level. But if you look at the body at the end of the video, you'll notice that it doesn't quite look level. Now, the body itself is only about 1/4 inch high in the back, which is, you know, fine by me. The second you load it up with something, you know, it's gonna sag that little bit anyway. But the Subaru rockers themselves are not completely square to the ground. They kind of have a sort of a curve up in the rear, so it looks a little off, but, you know, once everything's welded in, all that will be covered. Now, I also got in the full fiberglass hood. Now that thing looks amazing. It also came in the worst packaging I've ever seen. It was just in a cardboard box with a bit of foam on the nose. The box was completely destroyed when it got here, but the front end looks fine. And that was pretty cheap. That was about $700. So the nose that's currently on is, you know, that's going. So some of the other stuff is I'm going to have to widen those fiberglass fenders a little bit to get that extra 1.5 inches in the front. And then in the rear, I can probably buy fiberglass ones that are that 1.5 inches wider. But I'm open to any suggestions anyone has. So feel free to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next part.